When people think of Dragon Ball, they remember Frieza as the evil emperor who was dethroned by the mighty Super Saiyan of legend. But as we know, it was a rabbit hole of transformations before we finally set our eyes on the final form of the elitist overlord. What's intriguing is that Toriyama didn't start out with any plans to have him transform. It was only midway through that he thought it might be cool to make it look like a bluff and then have him transform for real. Before we get to the transformations, what type of beings are Frieza's race? According to Toriyama in the episode of Bardock's Super Q&A and the Shonen Jump Issue 1 interviews, they are a new hybrid species that came into existence from an accidental spontaneous mutation in his grandfather's time. It suggested King Cold's father was the first powerful mutant hybrid. However, Toriyama stated there were only 2 members of the race who possess an abnormal level of battle power and cruelty. He named these 2 members as Frieza and Cold. Frieza is called a mutated life form who was born from his father alone and in strong possession of the mutant traits. On a side note, does this mean that Toriyama doesn't regard Cooler? I mean, he drew his character, so did he just forget him? King Cold said to the Saiyans that his son was more cold-hearted than himself, which correlates with Toriyama's statement. To prove his cold-heartedness, on the topic of reviving his father, Frieza said there was no need. Toriyama also called King Cold a mutant with an abnormally high battle power. This could mean that before King Cold and Frieza, the members of their race didn't have the need for power-limiting transformations, as their battle power was not unusually high. Therefore, King Cold and Frieza were the first to create transformations as shells that store away their ki. In Z Chapter 101, Frieza's transformations are also called stages, which reveals they are planned power level buffers. In everyday duties, a powerful being would not want all their power accessible, as it may prove very inconvenient. They might accidentally destroy things by little effort, just like Beerus destroys planets when he sneezes. From Z Chapter 109, Frieza was born in his final form, as he calls his final transformation his true form. Whether Cold and Cooler had other transformations, it's not been revealed, but with Frieza, he definitely created his first, second and third forms to suppress and control his great true power. Without this, Frieza says he can't keep himself under control. These forms also disguise their true power level from opponents. This caused Vegeta to vastly underestimate Frieza's power, but anyone would have. Transforming into their next form vastly increases their power level, so the forms work like buffer zones to hide away intense ki. Therefore, Frieza's lethargic first form was meant for restraint and enabled him to easily integrate with the Cold Force. As for the power level of Frieza, when the Tree of Might movie was released on July 7th, 1990, Frieza's form was quoted as merely 85,000. However, this was before Z Chapter 92 released on August 7th, 1990, where Frieza stated his first form power level is 530,000. Therefore, it's likely the anime staff underestimated Frieza's power and didn't consult Toriyama before making this poster. As the leader of the organisation, all his interactions only required a tiny fraction of his power. Frost also used his first form for publicity and only transformed when fighting a powerful criminal. Frieza would also have the need to transform if he confronted the likes of Bojack, but he seemed to avoid troublesome individuals and targeted only weak peoples. As for Frieza's characterization, Toriyama was inspired by the events happening in Japan at the time. Between 1986 and 1990, real estate speculation caused widespread economic instability. Much land was being bought up and hoarded by speculators in the hope of selling it for a higher price. These speculators were called land sharks, and Toriyama described them in a Daizenshuu 2 interview as the worst person of all, and he made Frieza the #1 land shark in the universe. The price of real estate soared until 1990, when suddenly the financial bubble collapsed and then an economic depression ensued. Frieza has similarities to these land sharks, as his army would wipe out a planet's natives and then sell it off to an alien with the highest bid. Therefore, Frieza was a highly disliked self-made emperor, and these parallels were apparent to readers of Toriyama's manga. Frieza's first appearance in the manga was in 1989, towards the end of the bubble, when real estate agents were the #1 evil. Frieza's subsequent transformations may signify the increasing power that land sharks gained in the Japanese housing market over the course of 1986 to 1990. Frieza's first transformation brought about his second form, which is notably intimidating with larger stature. In this form, Frieza stated his power level was over 1,000,000.
Fighting power in this form is over 1,000,000. What? Vegeta. What? Fighting power in this form is over 1,000,000.
And he could also control his battle strength and raise his ki at will. The only times we ever saw King Cold, he used his second form. However, it was never explained whether this was his true birth form and whether Frieza created his second form based on his father's true form, or whether Cold created it to limit his power. Phew! You got that, guys? It's still not confirmed whether Cold had two further transformations above the form he always used. King Cold could have been vastly stronger than Frieza, as Frieza said his parents could damage him, and also in the Android saga, the Dragon Team sensed Cold having a battle power higher than Frieza even in his second form. And by the way, why didn't Cold transform against future Trunks? It's anyone's guess, to be honest, but my headcanon is there wasn't time and Trunks wouldn't have allowed him anyways, but this should have been explained. With Frieza's third form, it stated that no one had ever seen it before. This was quite different to Frost, who openly used it to fight criminals, calling it his assault or charging form. With this transformation, Frieza became much stronger and faster. Unfortunately, there isn't any official power level given by the manga or the guidebooks, but the Super Nintendo Super Saiya Densetsu game hypothesized it as 1,550,000, which seems logical. Despite Toriyama's design for the third form being more complex, he undoubtedly had much delight in its design. It's likely this is Toriyama's favourite Frieza form, as his favourite sci-fi movie is the first Alien film, according to an interview in the first issue of Shonen Jump in January 2003. This is undoubtedly where the design came from. The similarities of the Xenomorph and Frieza's head shapes are very notable. Toriyama explained in the 30th anniversary Super History book that originally he didn't plan on Frieza transforming 3 times, however, he went with it but then felt, that's kind of a lot. So that's why Frieza transformed again so quickly, and we didn't see this third form for long as Toriyama felt he should have Frieza make his exit as soon as possible. Through Frieza's third transformation, he manifested into his true birth form. This had a streamlined design and certainly surprised me personally at first. I was expecting Frieza to rock up with something like this. And Toriyama knew readers would be thinking of an even more complex design. Toriyama noted in the 30th anniversary Super History book that he has a habit of giving characters progressively more complex and tough looking forms, then finally making them really sleek. The reason why he makes their final form sleek is because it's awful drawing them once they get all complex, and they are terrible when you have to draw them for weeks on end. Toriyama repeated this trope with Cell, Boo and even Moro. However, there was a lot more power that Frieza was still hiding. It puts into question what Frieza says about not being able to control his power when he transforms. Frost also said something similar, controlling my power in my final form is difficult, and so he kept his true form concealed and he'd only used it once before against a non-villain individual. Throughout the course of Goku's fight, Frieza controlled himself to output 50% of his power and then finally 100% of his power. So clearly, even in his true form, Frieza could control his power to any level he needed. This is probably why Cooler could remain in his true form and integrate with his force's everyday duties. It's unlikely that Frieza would ever revert back to his first form any longer, as Universe 7 seems to be filled with strong beings nowadays who just wouldn't give him time to transform. Daizenshuu 7 tells us that 50% Frieza's power level was 60 million and 100% Frieza was 120 million. Therefore, the guidebook calculates his 1% true form having a battle power of 1,200,000, as it's 60 million divided by 50 to get 1%. But this does seem a little low, as it doesn't give much room for Frieza's third form to be more powerful. So what I think happened is, Frieza fought Vegeta and Goku with more than 1% of his power in his final form, perhaps like 2% at 2,400,000 or 3% at 3,600,000, and that's how you can explain the math. Let me know your thoughts on this theory. When Frieza increased his ki to 100% power, his speed, power and muscle size drastically increased. Frieza fought much better against Goku, but the disadvantages of the form became evident soon after. Frieza's stamina was dropping far quicker than Goku and he was visibly breathing heavily. At the same time, Frieza's ki was rapidly dropping too. Frieza hadn't ever trained, so he'd never become accustomed to using his full power for long periods. At this point, the fight was over and Goku knew it, so he threw in the towel saying, "I quit." When Namek exploded, it appeared as though Frieza died, but he was rescued and cybernetic parts were added to his body. These cybernetic attachments were designed to increase his power beyond the limits of his organic body. Frieza stated he was stronger than before, as he can probably use his 100% power without physically bulking up or rapidly losing energy due to the mechanical parts. However, fans debate he could have actually been weaker due to the mechanical parts not holding ki and him not being able to physically bulk up to 100%. I actually did a video on this, so definitely check it out to learn more. In 1991, the Coolest Revenge movie came out, which introduced a new non-canon transformation for the Frieza Race. Toriyama designed both of Cooler's forms as well as the members of Cooler's armoured squadron. Cooler's Revenge was of course in a different continuity, as stated by Toriyama, so that does make it somewhat non-canon. Cooler was shown to be the only hybrid with more than 4 transformations, and although not specifically stated, it is implied that he also had the other transformations, as he stated he could transform 1 more time than his brother. However, does it mean that Cooler's true birth form is his 5th form? Because he doesn't actually mention that he trained to achieve it, so it's still up for debate. Frieza originally couldn't transform higher than his true birth form, he could only create lower forms that limited his power. Cooler calls his 5th form in Japanese the ultimate transformation that no one had ever seen before, but it's also referenced as the super evolution. It might seem wrong to call it an evolution because it resembles a forced transformation like what Super Saiyan Grade 3 is to Saiyans. Instead of being leaner, more lightweight and slenderer, Cooler increased his height, added spikes, muscles and flesh, and looks way more bulkier overall. His strength increased massively as we saw Goku's base form immediately was no match. With all the muscle increase and greater weight, you would think it would make him slower, however, Cooler never showed any key stamina issues or difficulty in wielding it. Perhaps he trained to overcome its possible limitations, much like Frieza's 2nd form. Someone could argue that it's the Cole family's equivalent of regular Super Saiyan, since it doesn't have the disadvantages of Frieza's 100% state or the non-mastered golden form. The fight was quite short, but long enough to expose any weaknesses in the evolution, of which there weren't any obvious ones. Cooler seemed to be a lazy individual like his father. He resembled an emperor, not a fighter, so it seems he might have had the 5th form from birth, with training to unlock it being less likely, but it's still up for debate. Also, if you wanted to know the possible reasons why Frieza doesn't have Cooler's 5th form, then definitely check out this analysis video. In The Return of Cooler in 1992, a year later, Cooler got another non-canon form with shiny armor called Meta Cooler through the advanced technology of the Big Getty Star. As Cooler explains, a computer chip in a space graveyard propagated junk into itself for years and eventually became a giant machine planet capable of consuming other planets. By sheer luck, Cooler's brain got washed up inside and he then merged with the main computer and made it regenerate his missing body as Meta Cooler. Cooler stated he was vastly more powerful than before, meaning his 5th form, thanks to the Big Getty Star's advanced technology. This was evident as both Super Saiyan Goku and Vegeta struggled to beat just one Meta Cooler. A good question to ask though is, why didn't Meta Cooler transform into his 5th form? Well, if you analyse the clips where he got vaporized in the sun, he appeared to regress back into his true form, so the Meta Coolers resembled the form that Cooler's brain remains washed up in. However, even if they took on the appearance of the 5th form, their power wouldn't have necessarily increased as the robotic Coolers were drawing on the power of mechanics rather than their own ki. In the Resurrection of F saga, Frieza trained solidly for 4 months and created a new form. In the manga, Frieza called it an evolution because it's different to his other transformations. The golden form is the only transformation where Frieza actually broke his limits, all the others just released more of his power. In terms of design, Golden Frieza isn't just a palette swap. The evolution brings a muscularity and height increase. The aura becomes bright golden and different parts of the armour become golden or purple. Why was Golden Frieza coloured this way? Well, the backstory is Frieza spent 2 decades in hell constantly meditating on his humiliating 2 beatdowns from the Super Saiyans. He was obsessed with the gold colour, so he coloured the form to mock the golden hair and embody his revenge. He mocked Goku by saying, "I thought the gold colour would be oversimplistic, but I am pleased it was so easy for you to grasp." Toriyama decided not to give Frieza something like Cooler's 5th form design, probably because he didn't consider Cooler part of the continuity, even though he designed the character. Throughout his training, the double humiliation was Frieza's driving motivation. What's evident is the potential of the Cold family far exceeds science. Frieza was able to skip Super Saiyan Grade 2, Super Saiyan 2, 3, Super Saiyan God and Blue to some extent in just 4 months of training. At the start of his fight with Goku, Frieza was on top. However, considering how Golden Frieza ran out of stamina so quickly, it seems like it may be his race's Super Saiyan 3, where there's a huge power boost but rapid stamina drain with prolonged use. In terms of a power level, the exact number is once again unknown, but what is certain is that the 100 quintillion number quoted by Ryusei Nakao was just a joke in his Flying Postman Press interview in April 2015. We need to understand he wasn't being serious at all. He was just making a pun on Frieza being a nice guy, which has similar Japanese writing compared to the word quintillion. What Frieza does say about his power is that it's initially stronger than Resurrection of F Goku's Super Saiyan Blue. Frieza also noted he didn't know the limit of his new power, and this demonstrates how he hadn't perfected the evolution nor spent much time using it. Now of course, Dragon Ball Heroes also gave Cooler the ability to stack the golden form on top of his 5th form. Cooler evolved purely by realizing, if my brother can do it, so can I. So by tapping into his inferiority complex of his brother, Cooler was able to just transform, evolve into the golden Cooler. That's Dragon Ball Heroes for you, the king of arsefuls, literally. Whether Frieza could also do this is anyone's guess. Perhaps the recoloring evolution is more popular with the animating staff nowadays. It's easier to animate after all due to the less complex design, as Toriyama said. The latest Frieza Race transformation at the time of this recording is True Golden Frieza. This is really only mastery of the golden form, however. After Resurrection of F, Frieza underwent training in Hell, and by preserving his mental focus, he perfected his energy control techniques. This means the intense energy consumption of the golden form has been eliminated. As a result, he was even able to control God of Destruction energy. We'll have to see what the future holds, but now that Frieza is alive again, hopefully I'll be back with a part 2 video once he gets a new transformation. Definitely let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and also which transformation is your favourite. Last video's #Enders winner is Abraham Lincoln. Mr. President, sir, thank you for your service. Congratulations to you, Mr. President. And thanks to everyone who watches my videos all the way through till the end. And if you made it this far, comment down below #Enders for your chance to get featured at the end of the next video. And also guys, remember to like and subscribe. And also if you missed it, check out this video going in depth into how strong was Mecha Frieza. Thanks, Kai Kai.